Do you feel weighed down sometimes with life, with your health or your work, and trying to find out who you are while you're going through all these changes after 40, 50, and beyond? Well, if so, then today is the episode for you because you're going to get to hear about making perimenopause more positive with my friend Polly Warren. Hey, it's Hillary, host of Hill Talk's Momentum and Midlife podcast. As an occupational therapist turned entrepreneur at 50, I'm on a mission to connect, motivate, and inspire people over 40, 50, and 60 to know that no matter what, you can reach for that dream and know you're not alone as we create the. As you know, we are making a highlight of women supporting women. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Polly Warren, and she is a teacher turned coach and advocate for women. And when she's positive, it's not just about perimenopause. Polly is beyond that. So I hope you'll enjoy this conversation. And please give extra grace because I ordered a new microphone. I was traveling to help take care of my mom after surgery, and it just did not work. So it's the recording through the computer, less than ideal, but just like in midlife, we make it work. Enjoy this conversation. And a huge warm welcome to Polly Warren. So glad you're here with us today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure, Hillary. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we're doing a Women Supporting Women series, and I immediately thought about Polly for this month because we're talking in the month of October about menopause awareness, and Polly's specialty is right now a positive perimenopause. And I've been so fortunate to have so many conversations with Polly over the last few years. And so now you're going to get to hear from her today. So welcome, Polly.
Thank you so much.
So first, what inspired the work for you to reach out to support other women in this way?
Well, it started really like so often these things do with my own personal experience. So I actually used to be a school teacher, a primary school teacher, and I didn't realize it, but it was really the end of my 30s, beginning of my 40s, when I had 3 of my own small children to look after as well. Things started to really start to change for me. I've always been a healthy person. I've always been able to look on the bright side of life, never really suffered with things like anxiety or low mood. And all of a sudden, I really wasn't coping very well. I was riddled with anxiety. I became incredibly low in my mood. And then there was a whole host of other physical symptoms as well, things like night sweats, really achy joints. I really was just thinking that I was going a little bit mad. I thought I was losing my mind. I was forgetting everything. And it took really 4 years to work out that I was actually perimenopausal. At the time, I hadn't even heard of that word perimenopause. This was almost 10 years ago now when I think back at it. So I hadn't even heard of that word. I didn't know what it was. I thought menopause was for women so much older than I was. And when I did finally find out that it was down to hormones and I was perimenopausal, I was firstly, I was so relieved that I wasn't going completely mad, that actually there was an umbrella term for all of these symptoms, all of these things I was experiencing. But secondly, I was so cross. I was so angry, enraged that I didn't know anything about this, that nobody had told me. I'd got to this age, I was a school teacher, I'd been to university, I was educated, and yet I had no idea. And so that sent me really on a journey of discovery. I was like, I need to, if I don't know about perimenopause, there must be so many other women out there who don't know. So I set myself a real challenge to learn everything I possibly could about it. And it was probably, now I look back, it was actually such a gift because it set me on a whole different pathway to personal growth, self-discovery. And I've ultimately left that job as a school teacher and now have set up a business wellness coaching. I've trained in so many different modalities, such as breathwork, EFT, coaching, lots of different things to now help others, because I think there are so many women out there who really need that support during this time.
I agree. And I am so grateful. And I think that's how you and I connected, because we each kind of went through our dark night of the soul or our deep challenge, and then wondering, wait a minute, why are we not talking about this? Where are the resources? And even just a few years ago, I couldn't even find support groups that were online, and people were like, we're not allowed to talk about it. Just yesterday, I was doing a fundraiser walk for hope for raising awareness for mental health. And the women I was walking with, they're all about 50, and they were like, "Wait, you're talking about this? Are we allowed to talk about this?" I'm like, "Absolutely, we're allowed to talk about it, and it's important so that we know that we're not alone, and we have people who are so passionate like you to reach out and help others." So I'm really grateful that we're all on the same team of helping other women.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, here in the UK, that conversation now has been going for a good couple of years, a good few years, and it really is now talked about so much more. There's a lot of media coverage about menopause. So it really, the conversation is out there, but there's still so much to do, and particularly also around the rest of the world.
Well, exactly. And I do think the UK is really ahead of the game in some ways. And I know some people think that, oh, no, we're behind the times. It's like, well, no, but when the momentum builds and people across in different countries are having the conversation, then it makes it so much easier. So I'm really glad for that. So, what would be your kind of specific approach? I mean, you've got so much training and background that you've done, but helping women stay positive through this perimenopausal. I think of it as a storm sometimes because it feels like we're in the middle of a tornado or hurricane or tsunami, whatever you want to call it.
Well, I think the first step really for everybody is it's about getting informed, about getting educated, because the moment that we understand and know what is actually going on with us and with our bodies, it immediately removes that fear, that anxiety, and it really does help us move forward. And then we can actually start to take action. So that is my first step. Really get informed, learn everything you possibly can. And that includes understanding what's going on in your body. So I'm a great fan of tracking your cycle, tracking any symptoms you've got, understanding what is happening month to month, so that you really have got a really clear picture of what's going on. So when you do go and see a healthcare professional, you can say to them, actually, look, this is actually what's happening, because things change from one day to the next. One day you might feel it's like the end of the world and it's awful. But then the next day, actually, you might be feeling a lot better. But it's very easy for us when we kind of look back to say, oh my gosh, I'm anxious all of the time, or this is just, I've got hot sweats all of the time. But actually, if you track it and you have a record, you can see, oh, maybe it's not all of the time. Actually, there are certain patterns and things are fluctuating and changing, and it can really help with that process. And also, it's very easy then for your healthcare practitioner to give you a diagnosis, because it is a very hard thing to diagnose menopause and perimenopause, because blood tests are very unreliable, because your hormones are just constantly changing. So yes, that's one thing I would do. Nutrition, getting our nutrients back into our body, is something which we all really need to be aware of, because many of us going into midlife are very much nutritionally depleted. Although even if we say, oh, I eat really healthily, life has often taken so much out of us, particularly if you've had children, if you've breastfed your children, we've not actually replenished our nutrient stores. And so that is something, we really do need to look at. The recommendation is that we try and include 30 different plants each week into our diet to boost those nutrient levels. So that is another really important factor, as is trying to regulate our nervous system in terms of stress. There's always going to be stress at midlife. It's a particularly busy stage of life. So we can't get rid of all of the stress, although obviously if we can try and reduce some of those stresses, it's preferable. So what we do need to really focus on is ensuring that our nervous systems are flexible, so that actually we're not in that heightened state of stress all of the time. We want to be able to turn that stress response off when we don't need it. We do need it at certain points. We need it to help us get out of bed in the morning. We need it to keep us safe, but actually we don't need it all the time, because and then it really does exacerbate all of our menopause symptoms if it is on. So yeah, it's looking at tools which we can use to really ensure that flexibility in our nervous system. So yeah, there's 3 things really to get going with.
Really good. So get informed, get information, track so that we can communicate successfully with our healthcare providers. Well, also nutrition, I kind of heard 4, so maybe it was a bonus then. Free bonus. The nutrition replenishment, because we think we're getting enough nutrients, but it's so hard these days to get what we need and keep it in our system long enough to really make a difference. And then regulating the nervous system. And I'm going to use that to jump us to our next question of what is your best tip for helping someone regulate the nervous system?
I am a huge fan of breath work. So this is a super fast way that we can use to regulate our nervous system. I mean, there are many other tools, things like meditation, mindfulness, but a lot of people say to me, but I find it so difficult to sit and meditate. My mind's so busy. When we use the breath, it literally is like a fast track to switching your nervous system from that sympathetic, from that stressed state to that rest or digest parasympathetic state. So a very simple breath, everyone can do, is called the physiological sigh, which is literally 2 inhales in through the nose and then and out through the mouth. And if you do that 5 times, you will definitely notice a difference. If you do it for a minute, you will definitely notice a difference. That is a great way also to try and use before you eat, because when we're in a very heightened state of stress, all the other systems in our body tend to shut down, because your body's so intent on survival, and survival always is the priority. So that includes your digestive system. So a lot of women say to me, I get really bad bloating. I feel really uncomfortable when I'm eating. So if we can do a simple activity like just breathing for a minute like that, it's going to really help you absorb the nutrients from your food. It's going to really help with all that bloating and all of those sorts of things.
Oh my goodness. That is amazing. I mean, for anyone who's just listening and not watching us on YouTube, my jaw dropped, because so many of us have new allergies, insensitivities, intolerances as we age, as our hormones change. And this simple breath movement, specifically before you eat, and they call it habit stacking. So before you take a breath, and could we do those 5 breaths together, Polly, so that the listeners or the watchers could pause with what they're doing and this simple thing? So if you will lead us through that, that'll be great.
Yes, of course. So we're simply going to just breathe in through our nose twice. So it's almost like the first breath is the bigger breath, and the second breath is it's almost like another sip in to take as much air in as possible through the nose and then out through the mouth. So here we go. So, and when you breathe in, really focus on trying to breathe into the belly rather than up to the chest, keeping it in the chest, because we all tend to breathe, particularly when we're stressed, up through the chest. So breathing into the belly. So, okay, so here we go. Oh, you probably can't hear it through my microphone, because when I do breath work, I always change my setting on my microphone, because so now you probably can't hear it because it's better for podcast, but I'll try. You can just imagine. So, okay, 1 big breath in through the nose, another little sip, and then a sigh out through the mouth. There you go, another one. 2 more. And the last one. And just noticing, how do you feel?
Oh, so much better. Other than noticing that I'm a little congested with allergies at this time of year with the change of seasons, but my whole nervous system just kind of took a break. And it's kind of the quick inhale through the nose and then kind of a sigh letting down. And I'm really working on letting my diaphragm kind of come down so that my belly is coming out for the instead of because so often if people notice their shoulders are up, then you're breathing up in kind of our anxious area through our lungs. Oh, I'm so glad you pointed that out.
Absolutely. It's keeping your shoulders down and really just focusing on your belly. Sometimes it helps put your hands on your belly to really help you recognize where you're breathing from.
Absolutely. Oh, that was so helpful. And I like to know the tip that you change your settings depending on kind of a realistic moment. I literally ordered a new microphone just so that I could speak to you today, but I didn't have the right connector for my headset. And I thought, if we could give ourselves extra grace as women, that we don't need to show up perfectly, we don't need to do it perfectly, we don't need to have everything just right. It'll allow us to have so much more freedom to just kind of show up and be in the moment. And when we can release that cortisol and that stress hormone, that's what's working against us. And that's why it's so essential that we take the time to reset the nervous system, because our cortisol and stress is working overtime as our hormones shift. So we have to intentionally calm those down. Oh, goodness. Thank you so much for that, Polly. Wow. Well, with our nervous system, it's going to bring me kind of to our fun fact. And I like to ask people, okay, tell me something about you that many people don't know. And when you're brave enough, like you are, to put yourself out on social media, on a podcast, sometimes people think it's all easy for you, but you shared something with me that was a little bit more personal.
Yeah, well, I used to be so shy. I was such a shy child. I used to constantly hide behind my dad's leg. I wouldn't want to talk to anybody. And even going through school, I really struggled with this. I used to go really bright red if anyone spoke to me. And then it's kind of followed me throughout all of my adult life. And when I started this business, I knew that it was really important that I put myself out there, that I needed to tell people about what I wanted to do. And there was a big part of me that wanted to do that. So the only way I could do that was just to face that fear. And I absolutely have done that. And actually, I was so grateful to a friend of mine who used to actually be a live news reporter on the BBC, and she ended up starting a business about helping other women to become visible, to get in front of the camera. And so I did her beta course, and it was the best thing. She created a space in a Facebook group where we could all just go and practice going live and talking on video. And that was exactly what I needed, just to give myself that confidence that, yes, I can do it. Because I was always like, I don't even know what I'm going to say. And what if I forget what I'm talking about? And all those worries, which we all have. But actually, what I have learned is that it's just about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. And really, no one really cares. And if you mess up, it's not the end of the world. And now it just, honestly, I find it amazing how full circle I've come. I find it really quite, I'm really proud of myself for that, because I never ever thought that I would be comfortable sitting on a podcast talking to you, doing all of this. And actually another big thing is, which I've done is, I met another friend who's doing a very similar thing to me, and we challenged ourselves. We said, right, let's every Monday morning go live on Instagram and do a live. And we call it Monday Motivation. We still do it. And we pick a topic and we talk about it for half an hour. And actually now I now upload it to my podcast as a second podcast episode, because it was like, what we're talking about is actually quite good stuff. And I was getting lots of comments. So just little things like that. It was like I had no intention of doing that. But now I get a lot of comments of people going, I love those Monday motivations. And that, though, has helped me get over my fear of being live, because that was also the biggest problem. I got comfortable with just doing a video, but actually doing it live was like the next step of being really difficult. So yes, it is just about facing that fear, doing it, getting uncomfortable, and you do build that sort of resilience muscle. It it just builds. And I still do get quite nervous sometimes about certain things, but it doesn't stop me from doing it. That's the difference.
Oh, that is such a huge encouragement because many of us have grown up to be kind of shy or not enjoying the sound of our face or our facial expressions. And it's just kind of working through that and knowing that the service we're providing for others is just bigger than the fear. And that can help us really kind of get outside of our own heads and mindset to know that, hey, I'm just trying to offer a service. If this helps you, that's wonderful. And if I'm not for you, that's okay too. So I kind of like that.
Absolutely. I mean, I came to do my podcast, I hated my voice, and I've hated my voice throughout my whole of my life. But then when you have a podcast and I was editing it and I was listening back to the episodes, you have to get used to your voice. And this was like the biggest step to get out of my comfort zone ever. And now I'm so used to listening to my voice that actually it doesn't bother me. And it's my voice, which a lot of people comment on and go, oh my gosh, I love your voice. I was like, really? I hated my voice.
I love your voice too. But it is true. It's very hard for me to listen to my own voice. And it's not a pleasant thing. And people are like, oh, you must be so full of yourself. I'm like, oh no, it's really, it's really a lesson in humility and trying to be kind to yourself and talk positively to, it might not sound how I think I sound, but maybe it's helping someone else. And that's really the goal. But I think being kind to ourselves is something we could all do a lot more of for sure.
Absolutely. And also just not worrying about everything having to be perfect. That's the other thing I've had to really learn and to really let go of. I really am a recovering perfectionist. Everything I wanted to be perfect. And now, particularly doing something like a podcast, it's impossible to be perfect because it's never going to be perfect. And actually people, I've realized, don't want perfect. It's not normal. They like you just turning up who you are and doing it messy.
Oh, well, if people like messy, I am the person for you because I feel like not only inside my mind, but inside my space, if you could see the suitcases since I'm not even in my own home and but we just show up and we still just do it. And I didn't want to miss this opportunity to get to chat with you. So I'm so, so grateful for you. And Polly, as we wrap things up, what is it that is kind of your latest idea or project that you're working on? If there's something you'd like to share with the listeners or the viewers today?
Well, I'm midway through a group program at the moment, so I'm not going to share that quite yet, because that's going really well, but it's not available at the moment. I think I'm just going to say, come and listen to the podcast. We'll put the link here. I'll give you that. I think that's really where you'll hear all about what I'm up to anyway, because I tend to talk about it on the podcast. But if you're a midlife and you are perimenopausal, there are so many useful episodes because I speak to so many wonderful experts. Hillary's on there as well, sharing her story. And it's such a pleasure to be able to help women discover lots of different ways that they can manage this stage of life.
Oh, absolutely. So we will share the links in the notes, and we release on Tuesday for audio. We release videos on Wednesday, so you can check that out. And our mission is just to help other women around the world. You're over 40, you're over 50, you're over 60, and you're going through it, and we want to just help and support you. So Polly Warren, I just love it so much. And I'm grateful that you're a podcaster. I'm grateful that you're a coach. I'm grateful that you're an educator and using all of these tools and strategies to help other women. And just in summary, I'm just going to let our listeners remember that you can inform yourself, get educated. You can track your symptoms so you can communicate with your provider. You can let go of that fear and anxiety of speaking up for yourself or showing up on a podcast. Understanding your body, your mind, and your cycle. Focusing on nutrition, trying to get 30 plants in a week. Wow, that's a hefty goal, but possible. And regulating our nervous system through breath work. It was the short inhale through the nose, two puffs kind of. And then a big exhale sigh of just letting it out through the mouth. So I am so grateful, Polly Warren, for you.
Oh, thank you so much, Hilary. It's been a real pleasure. I'm so grateful for you and all the work that you're doing as well. And thank you so much for this opportunity to come and chat to you. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you know someone who is over the age of 40 that might enjoy listening to some of these stories or interviews? Please help me by sharing this episode. Ask your friends to subscribe and tell them a little bit about it. You know, the goal is so that people will know that you're not alone. Thanks so much for listening. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you being an essential part of the Women's Midlife Network. We're connecting women. We're sharing stories and inspiring change. And not just for now, but for decades to come. I am so thankful for you, and I always hope you feel the love. Until next time, this is Hilary Baggett with Hill Talks Podcast. Let's move forward in midlife.